I bought a pretty rough Stanley 60.5 low angle block plane that I wanted to just try to do a cleanup and a fix up, and I think this one came out pretty nice. Stay tuned for the video. The plane was definitely all there. All the parts were there. Nothing was bent or broken. The brass knob just needed a good shine up. The lever cap was in good shape, just very crummy paint job and a lot of pitting in the paint job, some mixed in rust. This screw adjustment was very gummy and very almost hard to turn. It was so full of junk, and so it just needed a thorough cleaning. The screw was also very gummy and junky and needed just a thorough cleaning. The threads needed a cleaning and the screw head needed a cleaning. I generally just put a little dab of beeswax on the threads and run them in and out a few times. I did that also with the adjuster, and that kind of helped that part. And then it just needed a bath, and what I usually use is just a little glue brush and denatured alcohol. Generally, I just submerge, half the plane, and just give it kind of a scrub down with the alcohol. I feel like this is a good way to get rid of the, I would say, more chunky dirt and dust. Just plain dirt, basically, and dust, and lint, and old wood, and everything else that gets in these planes. It doesn't really strip the paint, but it does work as a good cleaner. And what's good about the alcohol is it dries almost instantly once you're done. So you kind of get a good idea what you have to work with as a plane and a plane body. Once I had washed up all these parts, here it is, kind of clean but still pretty ugly. So then I started working on the frills, and the first thing I wanted to do is polish up that brass knob for the adjustable throat, and that came out really nice after just spinning it in my drill press for a little bit and holding a rag with some polishing compound against it. Next thing I did was, I'll call it the body work. I use glazing compound, glazing putty made by Bondo, like they use for fixing dents in cars, and I Bondoed the lever cap and parts of the body that just were pitted. I know true purists will just be appalled that I painted this plane, but you'll get over it, and it looks a lot better, and it doesn't matter. So at least in my opinion, doesn't matter much. The Japanning was not in very great shape. And so once I had painted it, I'm just pulling now the masking tape off, and I cleaned the edges up that just add highlight and the look to the plane. I scraped these upper edges of the sidewalls with a knife to get them back down to the metal. Used a little bit of sandpaper on them just to shine them up a bit. And so I think once I was done with this, I was pretty happy with the way the body of the plane looked and the way the lever cap looked, and was ready to go on to sharpening and tuning up. So I started, the blade was in pretty sad shape. The bevel was just kind of beat up, kind of rounded over, and so I went with some 220 paper and then 400 paper, wet and dry paper, to just try to reestablish the bevel. And then once that was reestablished, I have this diamond stone that is a rougher grit on one side and a finer grit on the other side. Honestly, can't remember what the numbers are, but I continued to work on that bevel on the rough side of the diamond stone. And then after I did that for a while and got kind of an even scratch pattern across the full width and the full length of the bevel, I switched the stone to the fine grit and continued on the bevel, and then finally on a micro bevel, again using the same stone, the fine grit on that stone. And once I'd done that and was happy with almost a polished bevel on the blade, I went to a leather strop with some honing compound and basically put a polish on it, and also dragged the blade upside down like I'm doing here to pull off any burr. Once it was time to reassemble, again I put a little bit of beeswax on the threads, and now this adjuster turns super easily in and out, very, very easily. I cleaned up the area of the plane body where the plane rests near the mouth of the plane. I had that blade so sharp I protected it with some painter's tape just to keep me from dinging it up, knocking it around. So I was able to now put it in place and lock the lever cap down in the spot where I felt I would have the most adjustability with the adjusting screw and the length of the plane blade. Basically backed that adjuster almost all the way out and then put the blade just barely into the mouth of the plane, so I knew I would have plenty of adjustability. Getting these lever caps right, I never feel good about them. I just tweaked the screw until I felt like it was a good tight fit. Then I put the adjustable mouth portion back in the plane, put that brass knob back on it and the little concentric adjuster deal that moves the plane mouth forward and back. Got that installed. I had cleaned up all those edges where these two flat surfaces rub into each other so that it would move super smoothly forward and back and be a nice tight fit left and right. You can see how easy that moves. And then once I'd done that, I waxed the bottom of the plane, and then I gave it a little bit of a try with some wood just to see how well the sharpening had worked out. So here's a piece of 3/4 inch wood, and after just a few little tweaks of adjusting the blade, you can see I'm getting really nice shavings off of that wood with this little block plane. It's, again, I'll say it again, it's the 60 1/2. It's what people consider, I think, kind of the classic low angle block plane from Stanley. I'm more currently sold on the number 65 plane, and I've got videos regarding that as well. But as far as a low angle block plane, small, fit in your hand, easy, it's pretty hard to beat a 60 1/2, and they're everywhere, and they're everywhere super inexpensively. And so you can see the shavings I'm getting off of this board just with this tiny little plane. I tried doing some easing of the edges with it because that's probably the thing I use a block plane more than anything else for. You can see it's pulling off nice little curls off of those eased edges. Then I went for some end grain. I just thought I'd test it on the end grain, both easing the edges and just planing across the end grain, and I found the plane very forgiving, very easy to use. It would take very fine shavings off of the end grain, generally push the plane at a skewed angle when I'm going against end grain because you want, I think, more of a slicing motion than a digging in or cutting motion. And so I just gave this a little bit of a time on the end grain and thought, well, it's performing like a good 60 1/2 should. And once you've planed a little bit of end grain, then you take some sandpaper to it. You can get a very nice finish on end grain using a low angle block plane. So Then tried easing edges on the end grain, same as before. I pushed the plane at a little skewed angle, and you get a very nice round finished kind of a planed surface. One last thing I tried, that other piece of wood was not necessarily a softwood, but it wasn't as hard as this. This is a piece of black walnut. I just thought I'd see how well the plane got through that. And again, it was giving super nice, very fine, very consistent shavings, even off of this black walnut. So it was a fun project. Bought it for really, really cheap. Just did a little bit of cleaning, a little bit of tuning, a little bit of sharpening, a little bit of paint, and I think I ended up with a very nice, very useful and user-friendly 60.5 Stanley plane. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If so, please subscribe, and thank you for watching.